Ever since I posted my video showing my matric results, I've been getting questions on how I managed to get a mark that is over 90% for physical sciences in my matric final exams. This is a video specially about physics that I'm going to tell you how I did that, so continue watching this video.
I would like to get to know if it could be.
You're in matric, you've seen KOKETSO's video. He got a 90% for physics. As you saw, he showed his statement. You saw that he got quite a good mark for physics, and now you're like, how did you do it? Now, the first thing and the most important thing about physical sciences, especially in matric, is that you need to know your theory. You need to know your theory, especially for things like chemistry, where in topics, in fact, every single topic in chemistry, it requires you to know your theory. From question 2, which is your nomenclature, your naming, organic chemistry, you need to know that, okay, there's, when you use concentrated sulfuric acid, it's this type of reaction. There's dehydration, there's hydrolysis, there's that. You need to know the applications that you can use all those reactions for. You go on to the next question, you need to know intermolecular forces, you need to know that, okay, boiling point, directly proportional to what, that vapor pressure, all that. Chemistry, rates of reaction, your Chatelier's principle. Chemistry is just a lot. You need to know theory. And that's one thing that people don't really focus on. Like, you're out there on some terminus to past papers, but you haven't drilled in the theory first. That is one thing that I always did. I would spend, let's tell I have 5 days to an exam. You shouldn't start 5 days before. You should have started a long time ago. But let's say 5 days before an exam. I'll spend the first day or the first 2 days looking at the theory of everything. I read up on these nomenclature. If I see this double C double bond O and there are 2 carbons on the side, I know it's a ketone. And what does that mean? What do we call the type of bond? It's called a carbonyl bond. Like that. I hope I give you the right answer, don't you? But yeah, that one. It's called that type of bond. Okay, the next day, I'm like, okay, let me look again. And then now I look at maybe my intermolecular forces. I look at my rates of reaction. And I read, okay, I know that when as the temperature increases, the average kinetic energy increases because temperature is the measure of the average kinetic energy. Just all that gibberish that you hear on chemistry and physics. I would always drill in my theory first, so that by the time I do a past paper, they ask now, increase, decrease, remain the same. Why? I can give you that answer because I was just reading it just now. Like, I'm after reading it. But manzo papeli past paper and just go into a past paper and I don't know the theory of my examination, it's really going to give me problems, I tell you. So just drill in your theory. When it comes to physical sciences, don't sleep on your theory. Make sure that you know that theory very well before you get to start with past papers and every stuff that are, yeah. But just make sure that you drill in your theory before you start with everything, your past papers and all that. Then the next thing, which is the most, okay, it's one of the most important, if not the most important, that most of you, I believe over 60, 90, 80% of you do not do, is practicing your multiple choice questions. Many of you actually, like, you don't realize that your question 2, your naming systems, it can be 9 marks, it can be 13 marks, it can be 12 marks. Multiple choice is a whole 20 marks. You get 2 of them wrong, you get 4 marks wrong. And that 4 marks is the one that you're going to spend some way trying to justify why temperature increased. But you can, like, you could have literally gotten it just by circling 2 answers. Multiple choice, people. Even if you don't know the answer, it's there. Just select one. Try something with a multiple choice. But when things got tough, close my eyes. I do this. Where I land, I select. When I definitely only do that when you don't know, like, do something, like write something, cancel options. You know that the answer can definitely not be this one. Cut it out. It definitely cannot be this one. Cut it out. Now you have 2 options left. If you don't know which one of the 2, try, man. You can't just leave it. Try. Take at least one of them. For all you could know, you could get that 2 marks that will boost you. Like, just do not sleep on your multiple choice questions. Study those things, like, I don't know what, like, practice them. Make sure that you have make sure that multiple choice, you're eating, you can make sure that you're going to win there, because most of you need that 2 marks, that 1 mark from a multiple choice question to get a distinction. Most of you will need it on to pass. Some of them need it to get 100%, to get a 90%. So make sure to practice your multiple choice questions. I'll practice those things, I don't know how often, even the morning before an exam. At home though, not outside the school. At home, before an exam, like 5 hours, 4 hours before an exam, I'll be practicing with multiple choice, like going through it, just, okay, so if I get this type of question, I know I write G, and then I start by adding, if they say 2 times the mass, then I'll write 2M. Then they say half the radius, I write half R. Try to isolate it, I see, this is how I get my answers. And the rest in J, it'll be very simple. And one of the most important things, again, that I can give you advice on is to always do your multiple choice last. Don't start multiple choice. That thing gonna chow your time. Start with those other questions, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Don't start with your multiple choice, because if you're spending a lot of time multiple choice, like, do your whole question paper. You find that now you're left with 80 minutes to do multiple choice questions, and then after doing, out of the 10 multiple choice, you've done 6, and then they say 5 minutes left. The other 4 you can literally guess or something. Mara, if you are now supposed to do, with that time now, you're supposed to answer a question that needs you to explain, to draw a graph, to do this, then you've lost out on all those 4 marks that are left, which is 8 marks. You've lost out on 8 marks. But if it's multiple choice, you can circle 8 marks in 2 seconds. So always finish off with multiple choice, so that you give it your own time. You chill, you think, it can't be this answer, it can be this, it can be this, so that you don't keep, like, just don't do your multiple choice first. I promise you, you will not regret it. Do it last. Always do it last, your multiple choice for physics. One thing about me, another thing that I always used to do would be that I'd be studying physics at night, or any other subject. Like, so this is how my days would go. I don't know if I've said this in the previous video, but this is how my days would pretty much go. Go to school, come back at like 4 or 5, depending on when my interventions were. And then when I get back, I eat. I make sure, like, during my final exam, I spoke to my parents, I don't want any chores. I want to push. And I promise you won't regret it. Just let me cook. And then I would get home at like 6, I would sleep. That's when everyone is online. Most of you are trying to study at that time, and that's when most people are online. Most of you are trying to study at that time, and there's so many distractions when people are awake. So I would sleep at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I wake up at 12, I've slept 6 hours, I've already woken up for the next day. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, basically until the next day to study. People are sleeping, but I'm studying, you know? And I focus more because there's no distraction, there's no active distraction. The only thing that can distract me is me using my phone unprovoked. Now, there's no WhatsApp, like things like, it's just boring. You can't be on your phone making phone calls. Most of you make phone calls for some reason, so we'll stop doing that. But the point I'm trying to make is, during the day, there are too many distractions. At night, the distractions are a bit less. So what I used to do is to always do that. I would sleep while people are awake, and then I'd be awake and study while people are asleep. And that really worked wonders for me. So if you're considering it, like, try it, and I promise you, you will not regret it. I hope you will not regret it. I hope there are no distractions at your house at night. But yeah, yeah. Now, another thing that I'll do with physics again is, as I approach an exam, like, I'd only do a full past paper 2 days and the day before an exam. So the day and the day before. That's when I'll do a full-blown physics past paper. I'd sit down 3 hours, start writing, set the timer, no distraction, go. When I'm done, I start marking. Only doing that 2 days and the day before an exam. But the days prior to that, I would be busy, like, doing topic-specific past papers, using apps like the mobile app, using apps like past papers, any other exam app, matric apps, you know them, you name them, you have all those applications. And they would really help me. Like, I would study question 3 of physics, and then I'd go and do a past paper at question 3. I would study question 7, chemical equilibrium, the Charles principle. Then I'd go do like 10 question 7s or 3 question 7s. And by the time I'm done, then I've covered so many question 7s that by the time I write a full past paper and by the time I write an exam, I've seen so much of it that surely if I write 7 of them, 7 question 7s, ngokulandelana or something, and then I write a full past paper that has the questions. And by the time I get to an exam, I'm writing question 7 for the 9th time. And the probability of me getting things wrong or like making mistakes or not knowing what the question is asking of me, they're very minimal because I've covered possibly everything. I might get there and see a question that I've seen before, or I might get there and see a question that like is somehow somewhat what I've seen before. It's changed something, and that's just me doing question and like topic specific question papers basically. And another useful thing that I always do that cut down my clutter was I had this file where I put definitions. I wrote down definitions. I know that for question 2 of chemistry, vertical projectile motion, they can only ask me what is free fall, what is a projectile. Question 2, I know they could ask static friction, they could ask kinetic friction, they could ask coefficients of kinetic friction, they could ask what's a normal force, they could ask all those questions. I'd like literally look, okay, for question 8, they could ask me what is EMF. Is it EMF? Yes, they'll ask me what is EMF. They can ask me what is power. So what is current, what is voltage. So I would like literally, I had a file where I wrote all those definitions down. And the day before the exam, I'd revise them. And the morning of the exam, as I'm preparing, wearing my tie, I'd give my mother my file, and then she would ask me, what is EMF? Then I'll tell her. Then she'll tell me if I said it right or if I lashed up this word here and there. And with you having these definitions, especially well compiled from past papers, seeing that, okay, they want this definition, because I'm sure y'all have seen that sometimes you write a past paper, you write a definition, sometimes you write a definition that makes sense, but then your teacher marks it wrong. Why? Because it's either 2 marks or nothing. And had you seen that definition from a past paper, took it down from a past paper, or took it down from an exam guideline, then you would have really like had that guarantee of, okay, this answer has to be right. I have to get 2 or not. Like, I know that they want this word from my answer, they want this word from my answer. You know that if you're looking to define what is a conservative force, you know that you will say that it's a force whose work done in displacing an object does not depend on the path taken. You know that they want the word work done, or they want something like the path taken. Like, you know that if I don't have that, if I explain the concept somehow, but I'm not saying those words that they want, then it's wrong. You know that the Doppler effect tells me that the apparent change in frequency detected by the listener due to the listener and source having different velocities relative to the medium of sound propagation. How do I still remember that?
Nice.
But okay, you know that like that apparent change, it's not a change, but it's apparent. That thing, apparent change in frequencies, you know that if I have that word, I'm getting the answer right. If I don't have this word, it's 2 or not, 2 or nothing. So using your past papers to compile these definitions will really help you. Just take your time to do this, and I promise you, if you haven't done it now for your prelims, do it for your final exams, and make sure that you have this going down, and it'll work for you. I promise you this time around. This is a direct link to my next point, which is the biggest thing that will help me in matric are not my textbooks, they are not my teachers, it would be the exam guideline. I always worked ahead. I always made sure that I was ahead of the team, ahead of the school, ahead of everyone. I would be using my exam guideline. So if something is not in the exam guideline, you cannot be asked for it, like literally. That's a guide to say, boy, you know this definition, and you must know it like this. And if you write that definition exactly in an exam, it has to be written, it has to be marked right. Because the people, umalusi, who are setting your exams and marking your papers and everything, they're also somehow part of the people who are setting the exam guideline. So between your teacher and the exam guideline, who do you trust? The exam guideline. Your teacher, you can trust them for your tests that are set by the school. But the exam guideline is not set by your teacher. Your teacher doesn't see that question paper. When you write the physics exam, your physics teacher must not be in the exam room in the final exams. When you write that mathematics exam, your maths teacher must not be in the exam room at any time of that exam in the final exam. So they don't even know what the question paper is. They will not even get the question paper until more than 2 hours or more than 1 hour until the paper is finished. So between the exam guideline and your teacher, who do you trust? Trust the exam guideline for exams. Because the department is literally telling you, look, for this topic, know this, know this. Just make sure that you know this, and you know this. Use your exam guideline. Like, on a serious note, I cannot emphasize this any further. Make careful use of your exam guideline. Make sure you've covered every single thing on your exam guideline. You're on route, like en route to getting 100%, if that's it. Like, if you know everything on your exam guideline, trust me, you've got this. So just use the exam guideline, yeah. And now, another thing that was really important in my success in physical sciences and other subjects in general, but physics mostly. So what I used to do is I would learn my things with Monomics. What I'm saying is, instead of learning that, oh, oxidation is a loss of electrons and reduction is gain. They're alphabets. Oxidation is loss, OIL. Reduction is gain, RIG, oil rig. Using a mnemonic. I'd even make mnemonics myself. Like, there was one in, I think it's rates of reaction. No, it's the chemical equilibrium. I would say fire, like FIRE. Forward reaction is favored when there's an increase, the I, in the concentration of the reactants, the fire. Like, I didn't really have to understand. I didn't care about understanding certain things. When some things were tough, I'll just cram it with a mnemonic and then I'll just go right. When it's tough, resort to being stupid and learn your things in that type of breakdown manner, you know, with alphabets, with their letters, with their beginning abbreviations. Just use mnemonics and it'll make your job 10 times easier. You don't have to be thinking too much. You don't have to be stretching your memory to lengths that you can never get to. Learn using mnemonics. And now, another thing, like, which is very important, is that when you do your past papers, please mark very strictly. Because if I'm going to mark my past paper very leniently, and because I see, I made this mistake, I was supposed to say increase, but I just wrote crease. And then you take a red pen and you write in and then you mark it right. Don't do that. You might have known when, but if I was a marker, I wouldn't know which crease you mean, the N or the D. Okay. The point I'm trying to make here is, you're writing a past paper and you're getting an 50% and you're marking yourself very leniently. By the time you write an exam, then your marks come back, you got a 40, you got a 30, and you're like, Mama Ganjani, because I was studying and I used to. No, you're not doing yourself justice when you're doing. Your teacher is not in your head, and the people that will be marking your scripts don't know you. Your school name will not be on your paper. Your teacher's name will not be on your final exam paper. Your name and surname will not be, it will just be numbers. Your student number, your center number, everything will just be a number there. They don't care about your name, your school's name. No factors are being used. They don't even know your gender on that paper. You know, you marked yourself very strictly at home. You knew what the answer is supposed to be. So write that answer that you saw. Because now, if you're marking yourself right, and you know that that thing is wrong, in your head you've registered that thing is right, then you write in an exam and you get it wrong. And no one cares when you do such things. So just make sure to mark yourself strictly so that you see a true reflection of not what you're capable of, but of what you did, like how you performed. And now the last one, and the most important. I've said something about doing your multiple choice last. Yes. In physics, in every other subject, you don't have to start with question 1. You don't have to do question 1, 2, 3. With physics, I would literally start with question 5. In chemistry, yes. Sometimes I start with acids, bases, because I was confident in that. With physics paper 1, I'd always start with vertical projectiles and then move over to question 3, then question 4. Then I'd skip work, energy, and power. I'd come back later when I have time because I know it will give me problems. And then I'd go to other sections. With mathematics, paper 2, I'd always start with trigonometry because that's where I was most confident. Because I know that analytical geometry will sometimes take my time, stats will sometimes take my time. The point I'm trying to make here is, in matric and every other grade, you don't have to start with question 1. Just make sure that on your question paper, you've indicated neatly the episode, question 10. You've indicated at the top, question 9. Then the next question that comes is question 3. Then after question 3, you wrote question 1. After question 1, you wrote question 7. Make sure that you write them neatly on the new piece of paper. You don't have to write your questions as subsequently as they come. And I'm talking question 1, 2, 3. I'm not saying you should write 2.2.1, then 9.4.3, then 2.2.4. No, but you get the idea. You're old enough to understand, and I know you get me. So just make sure to not be in your head with, okay, I have to write question 2. Let me just write 2 and skip. No, you can write question 2 as the last question. Relax. Take your time and make sure that you write the questions in the order of your confidence. Because then what this does is, let's use my example of chemistry again. I'll start with acids and bases because that's where I was most confident. So I know that starting with something that I see as being particularly easy will give me the confidence. Like, you start with the question, you know you got it right. You go to another one. After acids and bases, I think I'd go to like rates of reaction. I know it just came easy. Then I go to the naming systems. That is easy. Then I'd always end with reactions. Then I'd go to maybe Chatelet's principle. That is easy. Then I go to maybe the intermolecular forces. Like, you're building that confidence. But if you start with the question, already you've lost confidence, you've lost hope. Like, you're out of the game mentally, psychologically. And we don't want that. Like, we don't want that. You have only one shot of writing this exam paper. And you can't say, man, let's try again. You can't. So that's what I'm saying. Build momentum as you go. With maths, I start sequence and series. I go algebra. After that, I go. Like, I'll always end with questions that will give me problems. Like your financial maths, baba. Your optimization, I'd go probability, like that. That's me building confidence, building momentum, and making sure that by the time I get to the questions give me problems, I'm like, it's not like I've bagged that 80, I've bagged that 90, I've bagged that 70. So make sure that you're doing the questions in the order of your confidence. Like, you want to build the confidence levels as you keep going, and that'll just do for you the world of good. And again, you have reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching this video. If you have watched up to this point, thank you. And if you haven't watched my video where I explain how I got the mark that I got from matric for physics, as I said, if you want to know, there's a video somewhere. It should be here. There should be a video there. And if you haven't watched that, then check out that video. And don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. I hope this video is helpful. Good luck on your exams. Make me proud. And I love you. Peace.